Yo, what's up? A while back, I told myself that I need to start watching more horror movies. I love horror so much. I play so many scary games and I read so many scary stories, but when it comes to the classics like Halloween or Alien, I realized that I really don't know anything about horror movies. And so I dedicated multiple weeks to watching tons of horror movies, from the good to the questionable.
I like rocks. I love rocks. That's clear you two don't give a shit about rocks.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck?
And I've brought it upon myself to personally curate your horror movie experience, to separate the weak from the chaff, the boys from the men. But, you know, what is horror exactly? Because I definitely know I have movies up here that no one is going to agree with me that that's horror. The dictionary defines horror as an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust. So anything that is made to make you feel uneasy, paranoid, anything that is made to make you feel unsafe in the location that you're currently in. So, I got the tier list here. I got my little candle pointer wand thing, whatever you want to call it. We're gonna go through a synopsis of the movies, talk about what they did good, what they did bad, and then make a ranking on the tier list. So without further ado, let's get spooky. Right? Fuck yeah, dude. Alright, our first movie up, the first horror movie I watched this year was Alien Romulus. This movie was directed by Fede Alvarez. I'm definitely not pronouncing that right. Had a budget of $80 million and a box office of $290.7 million. So, not a bad gain. The movie starts off as the robot is like super autistic. You find out he's like a mal-programmed robot. I thought that was kind of weird. But it's about this girl and her autistic robot, and they're on a mining colony. There's a lot of fan service in this movie. One of the first scenes in the entire movie is them going back to the ship from the first one. All of these movie synopsises are off the top of my head, so if I get something wrong, I don't care, actually. So they're trying to get off the mining colony. They know these people that have like a ship that's going up to another ship that can give them like cryopods or whatever. So they do that. Obviously, this is where the aliens are. They go up, the aliens get them, super scary. Fan service again, where it's the droid from the first movie. The chest burst scene again, but it's really cool because they get like this x-ray of it, and so you see it like break her ribs. There's a lot of weird like birth metaphors. I don't know what Ridley Scott was trying to convey with that, but it was in there. We find out that there's like this goo that turns people into aliens, which was from Prometheus. There was this pregnant lady that was with him the whole time. She injected herself with the goo like a moron, because, you know, she was like, I'm probably gonna need it to survive. She didn't, newsflash. She has disgusting birth. I can't even probably show it. She gives like disgusting birth to this alien-human hybrid. Yeah, obviously it ends with only one crew member being alive. Although this time the robot is like in stasis, so I guess you could count that as two, but only one human lives. All in all, this movie was super fun to watch. I watched Alien and Alien Prometheus like a day before it came out, so I was like super fresh into it. Super fun. I'd give it, you know, I'd give it a middle of the road B tier. It was fun. It didn't really invite anything, but you know, it was. I'd definitely go recommend seeing. And you know, it's Alien. If it gets lower than a C, it's probably doing something wrong. Fuck! Alright, I just thought of a way more fun way to do this. Shake up the box, pull one, and then that's what we review. Ooh! Midsommar. Midsommar was released on July 3rd, 2019, directed by Ari Aster. Had a budget of $9 million and a box office of $47.86 million. Big money, big director. This was produced by A24, so bit of a slow burn, you know, because that's all A24 can do apparently. This movie starts off insane. It is a triple homicide by carbon monoxide. Like, the girl has like the tube taped to her mask, and her parents are dead. It's crazy. It's an insane start to a movie. Her boyfriend and her are like having trouble or whatever. They don't want to be together or something. They're taking a trip to Sweden to study, like, their friend's cult, basically. But they just think it's like a traditional Swedish village. They do a bunch of shrooms immediately as they get there. She starts to freak out because, you know, her family just did a triple suicide. There's this really cool scene where she's, like, in the bathroom and, like, lighting a candle. She lights it for the first time and there's, like, a guy behind her, and then she lights it for real and there's nothing there. Which, speaking about the main character, this bitch is crying the entire movie. Like, there are probably 2 to 3 frames where she's not either on the verge of crying or just straight up crying. You know, they stay there for a while, they get to know people. There's this weird redhead chick that's like looking at the protagonist's boyfriend the entire time. And on like this tapestry, a whole bunch of foreshadowing of like this bear that's like on fire and like gutted. They don't mention they walk by a bear in a cage. Like a real, like just a whole ass bear. And some guy's like, you're not gonna talk about the bear? And he's like, it's a bear, what do you want? The whole movie is like unsettling in the fact that something seems really off within this community. And then we get to the old people ceremony where they just jump off a cliff. The first woman goes, she dies immediately. People are freaking the fuck out. Or the tourists are, I should say. Then the next guy goes, he doesn't die. He just cracks his leg. You know, you start to pick up that this is some weird, like something more is at play, just besides people jumping off cliffs. But when the guy jumps off and his leg is like in pain, everyone's like crying with him. You're like, what the fuck is going on? They have to beat the old guy to death with a hammer. Some of the tourists leave. We'll see what happens to them later. We go through, we find out about the May Queen, and like, no one, you're never explained really what the fuck that means until our main character is pushed into this dance to become the May. We run around and we see what happens to the people that so-called, like, they left the commune. They're f***ing dead. There's this really cool one where he's strung up in the chicken coop, and you're like, oh shit, he's dead. He's got like flowers in his eyes or whatever. But you can see he's hung up by like his lungs, and the lungs are still like inflating. You're like, holy, this guy's still f***ing alive. The ending is super cool. I'm gonna try to stay clear from spoilers too much. And you know, this isn't the kind of horror where it's like scary. It's more of what the f*** just happened. You know, it's kind of more of you're left in the dark of the craziness that just happened. There's definitely a lot of like deeper meaning behind what Midsommar is, like the festival and like the commune and everything. And like I said, there's a weird, when someone of like great importance gets like hurt, is feeling something, other people will reciprocate that feeling and like start screaming or whatever. Weird. All in all, it was a pretty fun, memorable watch. I'm not gonna lie. It was fun to watch this movie. I had a good time watching this movie. Would I put it in S though? No, I don't think so. I think for Midsommar, we're going to go with a nice, firm A tier. Nice job, Midsommar. What's up next? Ooh, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice released in March 30, 1988, directed by Tim Burton, had a budget of $15 million and had a box office of $74.4 million. Another, you know, a classic of the 80s to early 90s. This movie is about a couple, I don't remember if they move in. They live in this house, they fall off a bridge, and they get rescued, brought back to the house, but it turns out, oops, they died in that car accident. So it's about them trying to cope with being dead. Beetlejuice, who's like this, I don't even know what the f***, he's just a guy that's been dead a long time. Yeah, this is the first on the list to have like a comedy aspect to it, which, you know, the movie's pretty funny. Michael Keaton is really good in this movie as Beetlejuice. Winona Ryder's in this movie. There's a lot of big names in this movie. I think Courtney Cox is in this movie too as the little girl. The pedophile actor is like the dad or whatever. You know, this movie's just a fun family watch. It's not the scariest, it's more in like monster horror. Obviously it's leaning more towards comedy, but I think it's only fitting that we put Beetlejuice in B tier. Right? I think that looks good, right? I just want to let you know, this is not the final tier list. All of these are subject to change. Alright. Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's was released October 27th, 2023. The director was Emma Tammy? Emma Tammy. Had a budget of $20 million and a box office of $297.2 million. Okay, Five Nights at Freddy's. This is a recent film. I saw it last year. You know, I was very hyped for this movie. I'm a big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's. But, you know, this movie is made for a very specific audience. And to be completely honest, it f***ing hits for that audience. I like this movie a lot. I thought it was funny. I thought it was super cheesy. The plot's super f***ing stupid. It's about this guy and his sister, and he's like has trouble working jobs because like brother got taken away as a little kid, and so whenever he like has like fits of rage or whatever, then he gets a job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, of course. The animatronics are haunted, obviously. Shaggy is Purple Guy. I know you know that because it's been said 30 billion times everywhere. The kid can talk to the animatronics, like she understands them because they're kids or whatever. There's a weird, like, police lady, Vanessa, I think is her name. And that's, you know, that's kind of, I'm thinking about it, that's really the movie. It was super dumb, it was super fun. You know, they build a fort halfway through. I need to look at this objectively, I think. Objectively, I think this movie, I can't give it any higher than a D tier. This movie, I liked it a lot. Not the greatest movie ever made, I think. I'm gonna be bold, only bold and brave, not that great a movie. Come on, give me a fun one. Give me something funny. Jaws. Jaws was released June 20th, 1975, a budget of $9 million in 70s money, and a box office of $476.5 million. So this movie was gigantic. I mean, the practical effects in this was outstanding. It did so much with what it was given. It was such an advancement in like practical effects and how stories should be structured in movies. This was one of Spielberg's first movies, and it was probably the one that like put him on the map. But Jaws is, there's a shark that is in the water, like one of the biggest sharks ever, and they're trying to catch it because it's killing people in the water, and people are too stupid to not go in the water, so they have to kill it. Ending scene, awesome. They're sinking. The shark bites the compressed air. He shoots it. Boom. Just awesome. This is one of these movies that people are gonna be like, that's not a horror movie. Shut the fuck up. Yes, it is. This movie was, I mean, I watched it as a like school assignment. I don't know, that has to dock at some points. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I think C tier for Jaws. All right, give me something fun. Give me something I can work with. Ooh, okay. Blair Witch Project. The Blair Witch Project was released July 30th, 1999. The director was Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick. It had a budget of $60,000 and a box office of $248.6 million. This is one of our biggest, from what the budget was to make it to how much it made, this is one of our biggest gainers. This movie was like massive on an entirely different kind of scale. Like movies are like teased and like, oh, that looks so cool, I've never seen that. This movie was a phenomenon. It was completely different than what anyone else was doing. It made people think about how to A, make movies, and B, how to promote or build the world in a movie completely different. Onto the actual movie. Pretty boring for the first half, and then we get to the second half and it starts to pick up a little bit. Basically, there's a group of like college students doing a documentary on the Blair Witch, which is like an urban legend from their like local town. Then they go to the forest where the Blair Witch is supposed to be, and they start hunting for the Blair Witch. They like bring all this packing gear and stuff. So they go looking for the Blair Witch and they get lost. That's where the rest of the movie takes place, is in this forest, where it's literally just inner conflicts with the group and being lost and how they got lost, and they just want to go home. They don't care about the project anymore. They just want to go home and go to sleep, but they can't go. They never go home. They get caught in this forest in like a loop. They find the Blair Witch effigies, and that's kind of where the movie starts to pick up. That's when all the crazy starts to happen. And they find the Blair Witch's house, and they think that the crew member that they lost is in there, so they start searching it. The first guy gets got. The second girl picks up the cameras in like the corner or whatever. She goes downstairs. The guy's in the corner. She gets got, and the movie just ends. That's it. That's all you get. You never see the Blair Witch. You never get closure on what happened. Like, that's it. That's the whole movie. Watching this movie now, it aged like sour milk. It is incredibly boring. It's kind of annoying because nothing gets resolved, nothing gets explained, which is like, it's annoying, but it also kind of adds to the horror, you know? This movie was so popular because people genuinely thought it was like real found footage. The actors who were in the movie went off the grid, didn't talk to anyone for like a year until the movie came out. There was like missing posters and like, have you seen me? Go find this person. Like, people thought that these people actually went missing, and people thought that this was actual footage. This is also a movie that like brought like the found footage and like handheld, rocketed it into the mainstream. Like, after this movie, the amount of found footage movies that came out after it just skyrocketed into the stratosphere. I got a couple on here. Some of them are good. Some of them are just don't even try. How would I rank it as a movie? I would say F, but you know, it had its like the teeth moment and like the crying children, and that kind of boosted it up a couple points. But down there with Five Nights at Freddy's. Okay, give me something good to eat. If you don't, I don't care. Oh, okay. A Nightmare on Elm Street. So, this is one of the big three of classic horror movies. This, out of all three, is absolutely my favorite one. I don't have the director nor the budget pulled up, so let me do that real quick. It was directed by Wes Craven, had a budget of $1.1 million, and made $25.624 million. The character we first get introduced to is Tina. She's having nightmares about this guy who has like knives for fingernails, and Tina does not like. She's playing like a high school student. She looks like she's 40, dude. She should not be in this movie. You think like, oh, she's our protagonist. She gets killed off within the first like 30 minutes of the movie. I was not expecting it. It was a very sudden steer in a different direction. Freddy Krueger is just probably one of my favorite horror villains ever. He's just so fun, and the actor did such a good job playing him. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. I gotta explain the rest of the movie. They think that Tina's boyfriend killed her, even though it was Freddy Krueger, we know that. And the way Freddy operates, if you don't know, he finds you in your dreams and then kills you in your dreams. That's the whole plot of the movie. That's the whole gimmick of the movie, I should say. Nancy's trying to deal with Freddy Krueger in her dreams while kind of trying to prove that what's-his-face didn't kill his girlfriend. Nancy gets taken to like a dream clinic, and halfway through she starts like having the nightmare. Freddy Krueger's after her, and I thought this was so cool. She wakes up and she has a hat underneath her covers. Everyone's like, where'd you get that? She pulled it right off his head. I thought that was so... I didn't even think of that. I'm starting to move around. I'm getting excited. We learn who Freddy is because Nancy's mom says that she like spills all the beans about Freddy Krueger. He was a child killer on the street that killed a bunch of parents' and so all the parents ganged up and burned him alive. They just straight up killed him. At the end of the movie is pretty funny. Nancy falls asleep and brings Freddy into the real world and like basically Macaulay Culkin's her house. And then the end of the movie, he's a f***ing car. He's a f***ing car. And he takes Nancy and drives away. And then we get to see this really funny scene of him grabbing Nancy's mom and pulling her doll into the window. It's really funny. Super fun movie to watch on Halloween. Best out of the big three, I would say. Where would I rank it? I'd put it in A2. It's memorable. I liked it a lot, but, you know, it's not my favorite horror movie of all time. Alright. something cool, please. Hellraiser from 2022. Hellraiser, original Hellraiser, is not in here because I ran out of time. But this one's in here, and I really wish it was not. Hellraiser 2022 is about this box that this complete loser failure woman finds. She's basically cursed now. People around her keep dying, and it's a way to morph the box into a second tier by having people sacrifice themselves and level up the box. So this woman finds it, people around her keep touching the box and cutting themselves on it and keep dying. And so she does research on it and finds this guy who was in the first the opening scene that we know is bad already because he just lets the guy, some kid cuts his hand and he just lets him die. Find the guy's manor, her and a group go to the manor, and they start getting picked off one by one because the guy is, lo and behold, still alive. Wow. You know, she has been seeing the Cenobites, or Cenobites? I don't know how to pronounce it. Basically, Pinhead. They have like this special connection with her or something. Some dumb shit like that. We also learned that the Cenobites can't go through, the manor has like gates, and it's like glyphs, or like some dumb shit like that, and they can't get in if the glyphs are there. What I did like about this movie was that the antagonist, the guy from the first opening scene, he ascended to a higher plane, and his transformation into a Cenobite was, every so often, they would run his nerves through his body, through like a mechanism, which I thought was awesome, dude. That's so cool. And just for the rest of the movie to be garbage. It just doesn't live up to the original one. And I didn't even talk about like when this movie was released in September 28th, 2022, was directed by David Bruckner. It had a budget of $14 million, and this movie made $12,600. That's gotta be our first F tier. It has to be. That movie was so incredibly boring, it's not even funny. Which hand will the witch's hand be in? Coraline. This movie was released in February 6th, 2009. It was directed by Henry Selick. It had a budget of $60 million and a box office of $131.5 million. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I watched the shit out of this when I was younger. This is one of the reasons why I like horror to begin with, was this movie. The atmosphere and the set design of the claymation is just gorgeous. Let me give you a synopsis. This girl moves into a new home from wherever we don't care. She uses one of, dowsing rod. Not a sounding, don't look up sounding rod. Do not do that. Stop. What are you doing? I watch this one almost every year during Halloween, and it just hits the right spot every single time. She lives below this like Russian gymnast guy and above these two like actresses, and then one night she is led into like this hole in the wall that leads her to like her other parents. They basically have the perfect house. She gets whatever she wants, but if she wants to stay there, she has to sew buttons into her eyes, and she's like, "F that, I'm out." And the whole movie is her trying to balance getting what she wants and also keeping her freedoms. If you have not seen this movie, go watch this movie. Get your mom and dad and watch this movie or something. Get your girlfriend, your wife, or whatever. Just get someone to watch this movie. Alright, what do we have next? The Shining. The Shining was released on May 23rd, 1980. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick, had a budget of $19 million and a box office of $47.3 million. This is one of Stephen King's classics. If you don't know the story about how this was made, he stayed a night in a haunted hotel and wrote it there. One of the best things about this movie is the set design. I love the Overlook Hotel. It is such a pretty set. It just looks good. It looks nice. I like how it looks. I laughed a couple times during this movie. Every time the kid did like the soy, Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin face, I lost it. So this movie is about a family of Jack, who is the average 80s father, Doc, I don't remember his actual name, and then there's the mother, I don't remember her name. They are spending their winter at the Overlook Hotel because they are caretakers for it, because Jack, the father, doesn't really have like a concrete job. He like does odd jobs all the time to get money. So they're staying there, and obviously it's built on top of a ancient Indian burial ground, and Jack gets possessed. And then there's the other guy who's like a caretaker. It's the bald black guy in the movie. That one. And Doc have the Shining, as they call it, where he can see things that have happened in the past and in the present. Or future, obviously. So Jack gets possessed and he starts killing a bunch of people, and he like time travels, I think. Maybe it's a hallucination, I don't know. Doc and the mother escape. It was where, you know, the iconic Here's Johnny scene is, and it's really I'm gonna say it, guys. It's a very early use of a liminal space in horror media. So, yeah. I guess you could say this movie is pretty liminal. Overall, I like this movie. It felt a little long, and nothing's really explained, like what The Shining is, or how he got it, or what happened to Jack. If it explained a little bit more, or it, like, left a little bit more, less ambiguous clues, I guess, it would make it a little more enjoyable to watch. But overall, I thought it was pretty fun. I liked it a lot. I think for now I'm gonna put it in a B tier, but I'm also thinking it might be A tier, so we'll see at the end. Oh! The Descent! The Descent was released on August 4th, 2006, directed by Neil Marshall. It had a budget of only $4 million and a box office of $57.1 million. So this movie is most likely top 5 of my all-time movies. And it's probably my most favorite one on the list. Even more so than Coraline. This is a movie about... The movie starts out as a group of women that just like to go on like adventures and are like thrill seekers. And then when our main character is driving back with her husband and child, they just get straight up impaled by like a metal rod. And so after that, our main character does not go adventuring and exploring anymore until, I don't remember how, I think it's maybe like 1 or 2 years, so she really did not stick to that. One of her adventurer friends tells her about this cave, and she gathers up a bunch of people, and they decide to go caving. But instead of going to like the tourist cave that everyone else goes to, they're going on an unmarked cave that she found. There's some truly beautiful shots in this movie. Just waterfalls and luscious green and beautifully lit caverns. But they go in the cave, and obviously they get lost. Trying to make their way back out, they find essentially goblins in the cave, and the whole movie is them trying to get out of the cave while not dying to the goblins. This is one of the only movies that made me actually like anxious. I hate caves. I don't like spelunking. I don't like tight spaces. There's that charm of like early 2000s like Lara Croft costumes and CGI. It doesn't take itself incredibly seriously, but it has a few like badass moments. The only real issue I had with it was it kind of introduced the goblins poorly. But other than that, this movie is absolutely an S tier. I love this movie so much. It's so fun. Alrighty, let's get another one in here. This one. Oh, okay. VHS. VHS was released on October 5th, 2012, directed by T. West and a whole bunch of other people. It had a budget of only $242,000 and had a box office of $2 million, so it did fairly well. This movie it's very interesting because of how it's presented. Just an anthology of a bunch of short horror stories. It's really a movie for anyone because it's just found footage from a bunch of, again, it's like a scary stories to tell in the dark. It's an anthology of a bunch of different stories. But the range is very large. It could be an alien movie, or it could be a serial killer story, or it could be a cult story. You really don't know what you're gonna get out of it. I would give a synopsis, but I mean, there's a lot in this movie. It's like 4 movies in one. I only watched the first one, and they're okay movies. The stories, I don't know, I just wasn't really that into it. They were good stories. Overall, I just was like, meh. I think that VHS, it's a nice C tier. Alright, let's see what's up next. Alien. Alien was released June 22nd, 1979. It was directed by Ridley Scott, had a budget of $11 million and a box office of $184.7 million. This is an iconic movie. Spaceship crew lands on an alien planet. They bring back an alien with them. There's the iconic, chest burst scene, and then the alien just stalks them for the rest of the movie, and it picks them off one by one. It's just simple, it's sweet, it's nice. The planet set design is awesome. I love the way that looks, the blue fog. There's literally nothing else I can say about this movie that hasn't already been said. It's just simply a good movie. Not even just as a horror movie. One thing I really liked about this movie was the hand-recorded close-ups that it did and the later portions of the movie. I think for right now, seems fitting to put it in an A. It might change later. I don't know how I'm feeling about it, but right now, Alien stays in A tier. We're thinning the herd here. Eraserhead. Eraserhead was released on March 19th, 1977. Directed by David Lynch, had a budget of $100,000 and a box office of $7 million. This movie is... Well, here goes Hellraiser. Look, I'm a big fan of bigger meaning in movies. I'm a big nerd. I like that. I like it when stuff doesn't really make sense and you need to figure it out. But this movie is doing that just for the sake of doing that. This movie is about a guy and he has sex with this woman and gives birth to an E.T. alien baby. It's literally just weird and confusing for the sake of being weird and confusing. That's all this movie is. It's the symbology is so easy. So much of it makes sense, but also doesn't make sense as to why it's there. It's oh, this kind of looks like sperm, and it's well, is it sperm? Obviously it's sperm. It's what is this supposed to represent? And it's dude, it's about giving birth to a baby and having to, especially one that might be deformed or something, and having to get over that and live with that. I hate this movie. It's so boring. Nothing happens. It gets F. It sucks. Let me go fix the Hellraiser real quick. American Psycho. This movie was released April 14th, 2000. It was directed by Mary Herron. It had a budget of $8 million and a box office of $34.3 million. Everyone knows this movie. Been memed to hell. Christian Bale absolutely kills this performance. He's really good as Patrick Bateman. The ending of the movie, left ambiguous of was it real or was it all in his head, is super interesting. This movie is about Patrick Bateman and how he is psychotic. Basically, the whole movie is about him teetering on 2 different lives of Patrick Bateman and Paul Allen, who is the guy that he kills very early on because he is jealous of him. It's very interesting to watch just because watching a man teeter-totter on the lives of 2 different people is super interesting, and how he is barely keeping it together. I also always forget that Willem Dafoe is in this movie, who is also really good as the detective. And the whole movie's message being people at Wall Street and with a lot of money are so idolized all the time, and yet most of the time they are psychopathic killers. I think it's fair to put it B tier for Bateman. Halloween 1. I don't know why I said Halloween 1, I only watched one. This movie was released October 25th, 1978. directed by John Carpenter, had a budget of $325,000, and made a box office of
37 million.
I mean, this is one of the big three of horror. Not Five Nights at Freddy's. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and then you have Halloween. I mean, it's kind of like a ritual to watch this on Halloween. It holds up pretty decently. Michael Myers doesn't really kill anybody until like 2/3 of the way in, when he kills the girl in the car. And, you know, I guess his sister or babysitter or whatever, I don't understand. Well, this movie is about, you guessed it, Halloween. And Michael Myers, who was this kid that killed his babysitter. I think it was his babysitter. We don't know why, he just killed her. There was a really cool scene at the beginning where he puts the mask on and then like the camera gets the mask. He kills his babysitter, he gets released like years later, and he goes back to his hometown and starts killing people. These babysitters have to survive Michael Myers on Halloween night. Ooh! And probably one of the biggest horror movies. I don't know a single person that doesn't know about Halloween. My favorite part about this movie is when Michael Myers gets stabbed like 3 times, gets right back up, and then he gets shot in the chest like 6 times out a balcony window, and it's framed very strangely and shot very strangely. And then he just turns out he isn't dead and his body has disappeared. So he's supposed to be this normal guy, but apparently he can just get shot a billion trillion times and stabbed a billion trillion times and he just doesn't die, so it's fine. Actually, it's actually really cool. To be honest, this is probably my least favorite out of the big 3. If you're gonna watch, like, one of the classics, I just watch, like, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street instead. They're so much more fun and kind of goofy than this one. And because of that, I think Halloween should get a C tier. I'm looking at the board right now, and I'm kind of getting a little angry at myself, but we'll fix it up later. We'll clean it up at the end. Don't worry about it. Phil Tippett's Mad God. Mad God was released June 16th, 2022, so fairly recently. It was directed by It was directed by Phil Tippett. It had a budget of only $150,000, which is shocking for the production quality. It also had a box office of $325,000. You know how I was saying earlier, I like lots of meaning in things that we need to find? That's pretty much this entire movie. This is a claymation, stop motion animation of basically this just world. It's really just like walking through a world. It's incredibly creative with its storytelling. Not a single word is spoken throughout this entire movie. I know a lot of people will find that boring, but I found it much more captivating for some reason. I don't know why. But it's about this guy called the Assassin who descends into basically hell to deliver a time bomb. That's a time bomb. Maybe a third of the way through, he dies, and we cut to who sent him down here, the basically creator of this guy, who is sending down even more, and then we are placed in the shoes of another assassin. There's a funny line where it says, Joe is retard. This movie is just all meaning with every drop of substance that it has, and to be completely honest, I like this movie so much, I might do a completely separate video on it. That's how much I like this. S tier. Obnoxious. How obnoxious is this hat? Alright. Terrifier. Terrifier was released on October 11th, 2017. It was directed by Damien Leone, had a budget of $35,000, and had a box office of $416,000. The third one just came out. I heard it was really good. I want to see it really badly. I'm not the biggest fan of like slasher films or just gore in general, but this is one of the few movies that can do it right. Doesn't take itself seriously in the parts that it shouldn't, with Art the Clown, one of my favorite just serial killers in horror in general. He is a very non-serious killer, but all of his victims act incredibly seriously. Like, it's Art the Clown is like introduced as he's just like this person in makeup, but at the end, spoiler alert, he shoots himself in the head and just comes back to life. So now we're left questioning, like, what is he really? But this movie is about two girls on Halloween night. They run into Art the Clown, just starts killing people. I mean, it's a slasher film. People are dying. That's the whole point of the movie. There's no plot, nothing like that. It's just lots of death, lots of gore, boobies at the wazoo. It's a very fun movie, probably my favorite slasher film that I've seen. It is infamous for its people having to run out of the theater for how disgusting it is. Those have to be fake, because it's not that bad. It's a movie, you know? You can see the prosthetics. Terrifier 1, A tier. Alright. Friday the 13th. This is the last of the big three horror movies. Friday the 13th was released May 9th, 1980. It was directed by Sean S. Cunningham. It had a budget of $550,000 and a box office of nearly $60 million. This is kind of the origin of like campy horror movies. It's kind of a cozy movie in a weird way. You get to see shirtless Kevin Bacon. That's right, you get to see the bacon sizzling. This whole movie is about Camp Crystal Lake. There is a serial killer down there, killing them one by one. And the whole time you think it's some like random white guy, but really, it's a woman, and an old woman too. So at the end of the movie, you're like, guys, she's like 70. Like, just push her over. But yeah, the thing about the first movie is you're expecting Jason Voorhees, oh my gosh, but it's Jason's mother. Jason drowned in the lake in Camp Crystal Lake, and now she's gone psych. It's a fun movie. I really like the I think B tier is good for Friday the 13th. So we have Nightmare on Elm Street, and then Friday the 13th, and then Halloween. And I think that's a good order for some of the classics. As Above, So Below. As Above, So Below was released August 29th, 2014. It was directed by John Eric Dowell. It had a budget of $5 million and a box office of $41.1 million. I really liked this movie too. It's another claustrophobic caving movie. It's about this girl that is a historian, and she's trying to find essentially the Philosopher's Stone. And to do that, she goes to France to climb in the catacombs, which is where she thinks the stone is. It is an analog found footage movie. It's really fun how they play it because they're acting like it's kind of like a documentary. The deaths in this movie are really fun. Someone gets dragged in like a burning car. Someone breaks their legs. Shut up. Someone just falls down a well. The ending is a little bit cheesy, because it's like, the real Philosopher's Stone was forgiving ourselves. Why couldn't it just be a real stone? I really want to put it in S tier, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's S tier worthy or not. I think A tier for now is good enough, and we'll see how it turns out. Saw! Saw was released on October 29th, 2004, directed by James Wan. It had a budget of $1.2 million and a box office of $103.9 million. This was a really, really big movie when it came out. James Wan kind of has a reputation of making a movie for next to nothing and then making $1 billion trillion off of it. You know, this was I think this was the first movie that he directed? Maybe? I don't think that's true. That can't be true. It's the first one that really blew up, I think. It's a fun movie. It's a 2004 torture flick. The traps in this movie are really good. The reverse bear trap, Vaseline covered guy, the barbed wire maze. Oh yeah, the girl has to like cut the guy open, but he's still alive. What the fuck, is that it? I think that's all of them. I think that's every single trap in Saw 1. I'm saying it right now, that is every single trap in Saw 1. This movie is about a doctor and, like, we find out later he's like a PI, that are stuck in this room, and they're trying to get out. But that's only, like, half of the movie. The other half is the detective aspect, where they are trying to figure out who Jigsaw is, and where is he now, and how do we catch him. The doctor, people think that he's having an affair, but he's really not. I mean, I think that's what's like made to make you think that like Jigsaw is kind of like a flawed person, even though he's killing people, so it's like no one cares. And that's another thing about Saw, is that like he picks people that have done bad things, but it could be either you murdered a child or you smoke from time to time. It's so convoluted and stupid. I've had multiple people say that this is their favorite horror movie of all time, and every time they say that, I just go, really? Saw? This movie's a classic, but also it's like, whatever. I think C tier is actually pretty good for that. I was gonna put it in D tier, but I think that's a little too low even for Saw. Whew, alright. This is our last movie. The last one on this year's Ultimate Horror tier list is Scream 1. This movie came out December 20th, 1996. It was directed by Wes Craven. It had a budget of $15 million and a box office of $173 million. It's about the Scream killer who uses horror movie tropes to kill people in real life. Which is just, that's so fun. It's the classic line of, do you like scary movies? It's a very interesting concept for a serial killer, and then there's the twist at the end, spoiler alert, that it's actually two people. And one of the killers is the protagonist's, like, boyfriend. I don't know if he's, like, actually her boyfriend or whatever. And then the other killer is Shaggy, who is only killing for the ride, and then the other guy is killing because it's like to make a statement or something, or like his mom or dad died, something like that, some garbage like that. Very fun movie. I love this movie a lot, actually. It's a great one to watch on Halloween night. And I think because of that, Scream will get a nice A tier. Alright, that was our last movie. Now, I'm gonna clean this board up a little bit and see if there's anything I want to change. Honestly, I'm kind of looking at it now and I don't think there is going to be anything, but let me take a look. Alright, I cleaned it up a little bit. I moved As Above, So Below and Alien both into S tier. And let me go down the line just so that everyone knows where the final standings are. In S tier, we have Coraline, The Descent, Mad God, As Above, So Below, and Alien. In A tier, we have Midsommar, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Terrifier, and Scream. In B tier, we have Alien Romulus, Beetlejuice, The Shining, American Psycho, and Friday the 13th. In C tier, we have Jaws, VHS, Halloween, and Saw. D tier, we have Five Nights at Freddy's and The Blair Witch. And in F tier, we have Hellraiser 2022 and Eraserhead. I will say, there are some interesting placements that I have, but overall, I had so much fun making this video, and I'm so glad that if you're watching this now, that you watched it to the end. I am definitely, well, hang on, I'm probably going to do another one of these next year with a whole bunch of other movies. There's a whole bunch of movies I had to scrap, like Silence of the Lambs and The Exorcist, just for time. If you would have put any movies differently, tell me which ones and where you would put them. I'm not going to change it because this is my ranking, but I'd love to know what you think. Have a safe Halloween out there. Get lots of candy if you're trick-or-treating, and if you're not trick-or-treating, watch one of these movies. With all that said, thank you so much for watching this video. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay spooky! Ooh! I really don't know how to end videos, dude.